friends. Welcome to episode 281 of School Librarians United. I am your host, Amy Herman. This podcast is dedicated to the issues and challenges school librarians face every day. As a 17-year school librarian veteran, I knew I wanted a podcast which addressed the nuts and bolts of running a successful library program. I don't claim to have the answers, but I hope that this is a platform to share resources and exchange ideas. Now is a perfect time to mention that all the ideas and opinions expressed in this podcast by myself, my interview guests, and listeners who reach out to the podcast are our own and do not reflect those of our school districts. When incorporating research, I always make sure to cite my sources. So whether you are a novice or a veteran school librarian, this podcast has something for you. Amanda Jones's upcoming book, That Librarian, will be available starting on August 27th, but you can pre-order your copy now. And if you use the indie bookseller Cavalier House Books in Amanda's hometown of Denham Springs, Louisiana, you will get a signed copy. I've included a link in our show notes. When you look at the cover of Amanda's book, you might recognize the Freedom Fighter shirt she's wearing. She reached out to the designer Kristina, who then designed a line of That Librarian apparel, as well as That Librarian flair, such as a bag, sticker, and mug. I love that we can all be that librarian who advocates for our students' access to books every day. You will find a link to this online store in our show notes. Please note that 15% of the proceeds go to the Texas Library Association, as that is the home state of the designer. I welcome you and all listeners to reach out with your feedback and episode suggestions. You can reach me either on Facebook, on X, formerly known as Twitter. My handle is @LMS_United. On Threads, you can find me at School Librarians United, and on Blue Sky at SLU Podcast, or the email address schoollibrariansunited@gmail.com. If you include your mailing address, I'll be sure to send you a podcast sticker. And now a word from our sponsor, Capstone. Capstone is an innovative publisher and education technology provider of children's content for school libraries, classrooms, and at-home learning. Home of the award-winning PebbleGo research database, Capstone has a passion for creating inspired learning and intellectual curiosity in children, and I'm so excited to be working with them. I'm also grateful for Capstone for their continued commitment to support the podcast in Season 6. They are offering listeners of School Librarians United a very special discount. Visit shop.capstonepub.com and use the code UNITED to get $20 off an order of $100 or more for both print and Capstone interactive ebooks. That's code UNITED for $20 off an order of $100 or more for both print and ebooks on shop.capstonepub.com. And now for today's episode, National School Library of the Year, and my conversation with the members of the Syosset High School Library Learning Commons staff, Kristina Holzweiss, Trish, Sergi, and Dr. Sarah Wasser. Friends, I am so excited. Kristina Holzweiss, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Amy. How you doing?
Kristina, you were amazing. I literally the only friend that I saw at ISTE 2019. I attended this conference by myself and I knew no one. And out of nowhere came this Amy Herman. I was like, and you're like, it's Kristina. I was like, of course you are. So friends, at first I didn't recognize Kristina because she did not look like her avatar in the way I thought that she would look like an animated avatar. So Kristina, thank you so much for saying hello to me, first of all, because I had gone through most of that conference talking to perfect strangers. And I absolutely appreciate that because it really made me feel welcomed. But that began sort of the beginning of the rest. Like you and I have been crisscrossing paths for 5 years now. So congratulations. Syosset High School has been named American Association of School Librarians a School Library of the Year. I'm incredibly grateful. Friends, we are in for a treat. You've brought your entire team of the Syosset Learning Commons team. So right now, I have to ask you, you're down to the end of the school year, but you still have a couple days.
Yes, we do. We end on Wednesday, and that's just 2 more wake-ups for us. But, we're busy, getting the space ready for September for our new 9th graders and preparing for summer for us and our families and some well-needed rest.
Well, and friends, as soon as the announcement was made that you had won, I was like, wait a minute. I know people at Syosset. And I reached out to you. I said, hey, can we do an episode? And you said, absolutely, but not just me. And I was like, wait, there is more than one of you at Syosset. Friends, I'm so excited. Today, we're going to meet the entire team working at Syosset Learning Commons, starting with Trish, Sergi, and then Dr. Sarah Wasser. Would you please introduce yourself, tell us about your professional background, the title you hold, and how long you've been at Syosset?
Thank you, Amy. I'm Trish Sergi. I am a library media specialist here at Syosset High School. I was certified in 2004, but actually shelved my certification because prior to this, I was an English teacher and I continued working with that. And I realized that I really loved libraries and what it had to offer to students and how we were the bridge between all disciplines and reading. So I thought that was really important. I've been in Syosset High School for 3 years, but I've been in the district for about 8 years. It's been a great space, and I love working with the people that I work with, and we've accomplished so many wonderful things. And by the way, Amy, I just want to say, you said Syosset perfectly. Not an easy feat.
I got to tell you, Syosset High School is actually famous for other things than just being the school library of the year. I've heard the word pronounced actually on other podcasts. So you have famous alumni.
We do, yes.
Yes, you do. And they speak of the school fondly. So I love learning, and I made that connection. I was like, wait, I have people at Syosset. So let's go ahead. Dr. Sarah Wasser, would you introduce yourself? Tell us about your professional calling and your role at Syosset.
Yeah, thank you, Amy, and thank you so much for having all of us here. It's really a privilege. So I've been at Syosset since 2015 as a library media specialist. Before Syosset, I've been in the profession for 15 years. I've been in various school districts throughout Long Island, New York State. And I also am an adjunct professor at St. Joseph's University. I teach a research class there, and I do some research consultation for the New School in New York City and the University of Pittsburgh. But my real love is the library. So I'm happy to be able to talk with everyone today about that. It's really going to be a lot of fun.
Fantastic. So let's circle back to Kristina, the person I've known the longest. Kristina, would you give us your background at Syosset? Tell us a little about your history there and also the role that you serve.
So, Amy, I've been an educator for 29 years. Like Trish, I was an English teacher. I taught 7th grade English for 9 years, and then I was a middle school librarian for about 15 years. And then I saw the ad for an ed tech specialist at Syosset. Now, when you see an ad for Syosset, you apply. Syosset is very well known. It's a very diverse district on Long Island, but it's a very high-achieving district. So it is a very popular district. A lot of people do know the name, like you said. So I applied for the position of ed tech specialist, and so I'm part of the Library Learning Commons team.
Well, and I'm dying to know, because I'll be honest, friends, we've never had a team of 3 who've been able to represent their Learning Commons space. I'd love to know how that came to be, because there are listeners tuning in right now who would love to know, how do they get 3 people to occupy their space? I didn't ask, what is your student enrollment at Syosset? Because for some people, I've heard of 2 librarians because of just the sheer volume, the sheer number of students that they support.
We have about 2,600 students right now. Our enrollment is going up. But in New York State, the mandate is for secondary librarians to have 1 certified librarian for every 1,000.
Okay.
So we're not there yet, and yet we do have, that support.
So again, that there must have been a process about that. So can you tell me, how did you manage to get a 3rd person in?
Yeah, it wasn't easy. So we used to have 3, and then the housing market crash in 2009 kind of changed a lot. And so they went down to 2 certified librarians for the high school. But when I came in 2015, there was a lot of shifting going on. We had a lot of momentum, and a few years into being here, what we did is we had a lot of conversations with our building administration team about this possibility of hiring someone else. And what we did is we then presented to them, we submitted a formal proposal, which took a lot of work, a lot of research, and they were so excited about the possibility of what we could do with 3 certified professionals in this space. And the person we were going to hire, an ed tech specialist, was also needed to be a certified librarian. So we were pretty adamant about that. So we advocated with them. They were completely on board. And then they worked with our central administration to be able to find the funding to make that happen.
That is such a win. I mean, I've got to imagine the dynamic that having a third person in there who is an ed tech specialist really creates an incredibly supportive dynamic. Give us an idea, because I'm dying to know, what is the divide and conquer with you 3? Again, sometimes I've said out loud that I would seriously have to park my ego at the door if I worked with another school librarian. God help them. But you've managed to make this work. How?
We have, the roles found us.
Oh, yeah.
We work very well together. It's almost like a dance. There's different passions that we have. For example, I de-Dewey'd the library because I felt like it was better for the students. Research is a passion of mine, as well as Sarah's and Kristina's. And what happens is we build relationships with our external staff, and that we just volley back and forth. I think that really helps us do the same job in different ways with different people.
Well, and I think you're right, because it sounds like if you have that many students, I imagine you have a teaching staff of over 100. I don't think we need to call dibs on friends. I think you can probably, there's enough to share. So can I ask the other 2, would you like to chime in a little bit about, that how you've divided up what you do? Obviously, Kristina, you're going to take the lead when it comes to ed tech.
Yes, I take the lead on that, but also Trish and Sarah are also skilled in using our tech tools. I would say that my forte, though, is working with our students with special needs and in using the tech tools to help them, succeed in our high school. So that's just happens to be my passion, and I think where my spot is, my role.
Got it. Sarah?
I think when Trish said about we all kind of have our specialties and kind of like our areas is pretty accurate. Trish did a lot of work with de-Dewing. She brought this passion for research into our program. And I think for me, I work really well in our professional learning communities with our teachers and bringing that component into our program. And so you have all of these different aspects that we all feel passionate about. But then when we need to come together to do grade-wide programs or grade-wide units or anything like that, we all come together and do that work. And so it's really great. And we have over 200 faculty members here. So yes, there's a friend for all of us.
Wow. Yeah. I have to imagine with over 200 staff, and there are plenty of friends to go around. The timing of this conversation couldn't be any better. We are recording in actually late June, and the application window for this award opens in September. Listeners have all summer to do some reflection and some consideration if this is something they want to pursue. I can't think many of them are working with a team of 3, but that's a luxury. But could you speak a little bit to the timing of how you did this? Because this isn't just something you decide and say, hey, I've got an idea. You have other people you have to convince.
We started pretty much in September of last year. We worked on it every single week, met every single week to strategize, to plan up until the deadline, January 1st. It was a tremendous amount of work. And we met in school, but it also required working at home on a lot of things, getting the application together and then advocating to get the endorsement letters and everything that went into that. So Yeah, it was every single week from September to the deadline, which was January, I believe, January 1st. So it was very substantial. It was well worth it. We've learned so much through the process, but a tremendous amount of work.
Well, and I imagine that win or lose, your program is going to benefit because it really requires you to do a lot of introspection about your space.
Yes. Can I add something? I think that was really the best result of this process. We really were self-reflective and we really saw what we needed to do to change. We saw what we needed to add. And we really were able to evaluate our relationships here at the high school and what we could improve on. That was the best part of this whole process.
In studying the application and the thorough rubric, which is shared online, I'm hoping that you will share with listening audience a little bit about how you responded to each of these different components. Let's focus, first of all, on your library mission, your goals and objectives, and how those relate to your school and the district's long-range plan.
So I'm going to read the mission statement, our library mission statement to you. The Syosset High School Library Learning Commons is an incubator where all learners are empowered with the tools, skills, and opportunities to create, invent, and learn where failure is welcome and risk-taking is encouraged. Learners are engaged in a design process that equips them with the skills necessary to successfully participate and navigate through an information-rich world and cultivates a culture of learning in an ever-changing, collaborative, global community. So when we keep that in mind, that really helps form our instruction, forms our collaborations, and we really encourage the fail-forward method. And that includes us as librarians, as school library media specialists, as teachers. We learn where things go wrong, we discuss it, and we adjust accordingly.
Well, and I'm going to tell you right now, when people start to consider this is going to point to some real glaring gaps in our program because somebody in this conversation, and it's not you, doesn't have a mission statement for their space, which is probably a good indication that I will not be applying for this in the fall. Nobody needs to worry about my application crowding the field. So let's go ahead and talk about assessing and evaluating your own program in order for it to support the needs of your entire school community.
Well, I think it was very interesting because Sarah kind of set up the skeleton. She went through, she looked at the different artifacts we need to find, and basically after that, we brainstormed. We went into our Google Drives, and we went and found artifacts that supported each of those. She created the skeleton, and then we kind of just filled it in, and then that's how we worked. We kept trying to find and curate. You know, after you've been teaching for a while, you just keep on going, and sometimes you don't have that time for reflection. This team gave us time to reflect. It gave us time to reflect together, realize how strong we are together, and again, curate all the things that we had done. It's almost like a portfolio process. And I think that, you know, when we take inventory of a library, we really need to take inventory of ourselves as well. And that's how you get better.
And I'm just going to jump in, quickly on that. So that was our process to put everything together and start to evaluate ourselves. But in terms of the assessing and evaluating our entire program, we've used tools over the years to do that. We created actually a needs assessment based upon the Future Ready Schools framework. And so we evaluated our program through that lens. We used the New York State School Library Media Program Evaluation rubric. We used the New York State Culturally Responsive Sustaining Education framework. So we used all of these together in different ways to really evaluate our program. We even continually use the SAMR model in terms of infusing technology in our program. And even during COVID, there was a great, we called it an evolution of practice. It was like physical to virtual school library program. We even used that throughout the years to advocate for continuing to have those services that we had, in a physical environment to a virtual environment. So we've used all of these over the years. And then in terms of our physical space, We even tapped into the model set up by John Hattie's work in terms of visible learning to kind of make sure that we were making the learning visible in our space. So we've used all of those throughout the years, and that was great to be able to talk about that when we started the application.
Well, and I've got to imagine having three of you working on this together is incredibly validating. I hope your administrators took notice. When I think about this, so often we are evaluated, but as square pegs in the round hole, we don't always fit that teacher evaluation. And yet what you're doing doesn't have any sort of, classroom equivalent. And so how you've gone about this incredibly thorough and all-encompassing program of self-critique, I have to imagine that your administrators took notice.
I think our administrators have been unbelievably supportive. They look at us as the experts in our space, and they ask us what we need. And it's symbiotic, really. They help us and we help them. And through that collaboration model has really grown exponentially because of the support of our administration.
We are always trying to remind people of the importance that we bring to our school communities. And when so many districts are reassigning their librarians to the classroom and finding reasons to pare down the number of people who physically occupy a space, I think it stands to reason that you have solidified this, not just this team that you've got going moving forward, but also an important reminder that Syosset is known to a lot of people today because of the work that you have done.
When we had to submit our letters of endorsement, we asked for a letter of endorsement from our superintendent and then our building administrator. And in one of those letters, just to show how much they value this space, they said the library is a growing and evolving place with a supportive, informed, and proactive staff. Ideas begin there, they grow there, and they turn into something new. So they view this space as that, and that just shows how much support that they give us in our work.
Clearly, your library is a dynamic learning environment that bridges the gap between equitable access and opportunities for all. How did you represent that in your application?
I'm going to bridge that with our library scheduling because all of that kind of works in tandem. We have equitable access in a multitude of ways. Our databases, for example, most of them have 56 different languages. There's an audio portion of it. There's you could change the font size in them. That gives access to all students. You can change the Lexile levels on a lot of them. In addition to that, our physical space, we have movable furniture. We have white walls. We have all different things that add to our diverse environment. And also with the dedoing, we have a quick read section, for example, that's typically a lower Lexile level section without saying that. So kids who might be reluctant readers can just go there and pull a book and feel like they're part of the process. In addition to that, we have, in terms of equitable access, we have ebooks, we have audiobooks, we have everything that a kid can use.
Also for equitable access, we have a 24/7 presence through our Canvas page. So students can reach out to us at all wakes of all moments during the day, on weekends, on vacations. And so that is a great virtual presence that's kind of nonstop. And even our physical layout, as Trish was mentioning, we are library learning commons. So we have our main library, we have a pilot classroom, which we can go into if there's time. We have a TAC center, which is a teacher space. We have an innovation lab, and we have a genius bar. So in each of these spaces, all of our learners, so that's students, teachers, administrators, all of our learning community can find themselves somewhere in this space. And so we really think of that in terms of, making sure we have something for everyone.
And now it makes total sense that you have three people there, because when you appreciate the scope and how many different learning spaces you've been able to provide, you have to have three people there because it's not just a three-ring circus. There's a sort of Grand Central Station. Yes, Kristina.
I was going to jump off what Sarah said about the Genius Bar. At the Genius Bar, we do have students who have internships who can work the Genius Bar. And we also have internships for our life skill students for work-based learning. So we provide, a venue for all of our students. We provide for English language learners, for the typical student, for the overachieving student, and for the life skills student. We have something for everyone.
Fantastic. Your library scheduling is thoughtfully designed to ensure learners have access to school library services, spaces, and resources at that point of need.
We have an open schedule. And so we're not scheduled per se in terms of the school scheduling us. We're allowed to do that ourselves. So what happens there is that we book classes with our teachers. And because of this buy-in, sometimes the three of us are so busy that we have to turn people away. Can you believe that? Not only that, the spaces that Sarah and Kristina were talking about, the pilot classroom and the innovation lab, are unique spaces, and teachers can sign those rooms out too for their classes. For example, if we do visit the innovation lab, there are monitors and Promethean boards there, and kids can plug in for group work. That their whiteboard walls. They can collaborate together in those spaces, and the scheduling is thoughtfully designed in such a way that not only can we be in the space to help you with that, but you can find it out yourselves. We also post our schedule on our website, so that's open for everyone to see. And if I'm forgetting anything, someone please jump in.
So our day is from 7:30 to 2:30. That's when we're here, but our library opens at 7 in the morning until 5:30 at night, Monday through Friday. So we have students waiting outside our doors before 7 in the morning, and we have to ask them to politely go home at 5:30. They would stay here until all hours of the night if they could. But so that's 3.5 extra hours every day that we stay open because there's that need for our students. So that's a really important aspect of making sure that we have a schedule and space for all of our learners here. So that's a really important piece. And also having that 24/7 Canvas access for our students with our databases, with our ebooks, with everything on it is really important. Well, and even on Canvas, it has the immersive reader. So students can have translations, they can have it read aloud to them. So we've thought about all of that as well to make sure that all of our learners can find themselves.
Two things I wanted to chime in. First of all, it's nice to be needed. So when those teachers realize that you're in demand, they're like, wait, I want in on this action. And so I think it's important that teachers realize how quickly you book up based on how valuable you are to your staff. And I love that your administration recognizes that you obviously need to be open and available before and after school hours as that third space for many of our students whose either family or transportation, whatever reason they have for needing to be there. It's incredibly important that those spaces are not just supervised, but also funded by your district so that students can be there safely.
Amy, can I interject one thing? Our library is beyond our physical library space, too. You can often find us throughout the building talking to teachers. And when we do a lesson with a specific teacher, a lot of times they share that out. And those teachers in turn book with us. So that's kind of been the evolution of our scheduling, and having the open schedule really lends itself to that.
Exactly. All right. So something that I found very daunting about this application is that you have to provide evidence, a lot of it, for the 6 shared foundations. We're going to knock them out right now. They're Inquire, Include, Collaborate, Curate, Engage, and Explore. So could you give us some examples of what you use to satisfy the requirements of this component of the application?
For inquiry and include, I think we discussed a lot of that before. Through the inquiry model, the students' ideas, we let them explore their goals in whatever project they're doing, and they work through the library resources or whatever resources they have at hand, whether it's our collection, whether it's our databases, whether it's newspapers or what have you. And often in the inquiry model, if they hit a roadblock, we kind of help guide them into a different path so they can adjust what they're searching for. And that's part of our fail forward model, right? You fail, well, what can I do different? And how do we help guide them through that model? So through discovering information, whatever that supports their investigations, they adjust it and they're learning in the process. We're helping empower their inquiry. And in inclusion, we talked about that, how the databases lend itself to that, the different languages, the lexile levels of them, even just the font size, that lends itself to include all students in their inquiry models.
I do like that many of our databases have appreciated you have to sometimes change the backgrounds, that the screen readers, the space between the words, the space between the letters, the font, and it's so easy to overlook. But when you realize it's the difference between supporting our students' visual accessibility needs and sometimes obviously the auditory, I would love it if somebody just read my research to me. So let's go ahead. How about collaborate?
So one of the things that we put down for collaborate was we actually shared a document about our PLC process here and the number of PLCs that we've actually established. So our PLC process here is a way for teachers, if they have an idea that lends itself to getting together a group of teachers and working together to solve a problem, a strategy, or something they've identified that they need really a lengthy amount of time to be able to figure out, we put them in this PLC process. And out of one of our PLCs, it was called an inquiry PLC, we actually established a new course here called Long Island Studies. That is a completely inquiry-based course about Long Island history. And so we put that in here, not only the process that we go through in our PLC, but the work that we did that led to that in terms of creating a new course and what that has done, throughout like the entire building in terms of how teachers see themselves, how students engage with, their own learning. So that's an example of one of the documents that we included for this.
Well, and I think it's so vitally important that our staff remember that we are partners in learning. And that's we're not just there to support the students. We're there to support the teachers. And that is when they recognize that you can harness the talents and the skills that come with the three of you towards an objective that, they're putting something on your radar and you're making it a priority. And it's always a pleasant surprise when teachers realize that's something we do every day. And being able to tap the energy and that expertise when it comes to directing it into something that's grade specific, or you're talking about the curriculum, it's incredibly powerful. Let's talk about curating for a minute.
Well, we always tell our teachers that we want to make their lives easier. We want to save them time. And I think that's the big buy-in. What can we do to help them save time, to help their work more efficient, and how to help them with their students? So we'll curate the resources, books, databases, all sorts of things, but we'll also create lessons. We'll package the lessons in hyperdocs. We'll package them in websites. We make things user-friendly. I think that's what it is. And we create tutorials and videos. The teachers don't need to know how to use a certain tool. We can teach the students. The teachers don't need to know how to cite sources. We can teach the teachers. When we teach students, we're teaching teachers at the same time. So again, curating all those resources to help our students shine and to help our teachers save time.
Something that I've also discovered is that it seems obvious that we're going to help those rookies, those rookie hires. Those are the easy ones, those babies. It's so much fun. Also, our non-traditional hires. We get some non-traditional hires of people for whom this is a second career. And that's really exciting. Those are the obvious people who you're like, hey, can I help you? You're teaching something brand new. This is great. But it does take a certain amount of diplomacy to go towards some of those. I want to find a nice word to refer to them, but some of those folks who've been around for a long time and have been teaching things the same way. You're like, hey, there are a whole lot of new resources which we've just come upon. Could we share those with you? Because you don't want to step on anybody's teaching along the way, but everybody could use our help, regardless of where they are in their career as educators.
I find that's a lot of teachers have issues letting you into their spaces, and they might think of it as taking over, but I know what we try to do is we try to find an on-ramp into their lesson, and it doesn't always have to be a full lesson. Hey, you're citing sources. Why don't you let me do the heavy lift for you in that? And sometimes that introducing them to something as simple as that builds that relationship for further lessons in the future. It could be different things. Oh, you're reading this particular book. Let's find some other books that we can work in tandem with that text. And that's how we build that relationship and collaboration.
So these last two, engage and explore, we've touched upon them a little bit already. Would you like to add more in terms of how you provided supporting evidence in these areas?
So for the engage category, one of the things that it asks you to address is how you share policies in terms of copyright, privacy, responsible use of information. And we do that in a variety of ways. And one of the things that we talked about was how we created an infographic for teachers about copyright and fair use. And that's in every department. It's shared in every department. We also teach a digital literacy unit with all of our 9th grade students, all of them. We see all of them. So we included that in this as well. We work with our wellness teachers for that. And another thing in terms of engage is we always meet with the new teachers every year. And it's such a great kind of orientation for them about everything that's available in our library space. So that has been really great in kind of getting them on board early and getting them at an exciting point where we can say, hey, we can help you. When in doubt, come to the library.
Exactly. I know that we've had considerable turnover here in a lot of our Metro Detroit districts. And when those new teachers come on board, there's usually not just one. There's a couple. And I don't want to say misery loves company, but it is always important for our new hires to recognize that they have a friend in the library. In this case, you're lucky teachers have 3. But, that makes their job less daunting when they know that they can come. That's one of the reasons why I became a librarian, because the only friend I felt I had was Carla, the librarian. And I realized I had more fun going and talking with her than I did struggling in my classroom trying to teach 4 different preps. So let me ask you, undoubtedly, there are listeners who are tuning in. This is on their bucket list. Let's talk about some advice. And since you've all been through this process and successfully come out at the other end, what would you recommend to listeners tuning in right now who are seriously contemplating making this a goal?
I would say take a chance. Take a chance, because we thought if we won, how fantastic would it be? And if we didn't, it was still a learning process. So you don't know until you take a chance. You don't know who your competition is. You don't know what the application is looking like. You don't know until you just try it. So take a chance.
Piggybacking on what Kristina's saying, I think it's such a great evaluation process. If anything, the win is looking at your library space and saying it really helps you figure out what's lacking, what you need to do better. I think if anything, that is also a win, even if you don't win.
And not only the application process, if you go through that and you get to a point where you can even like asking for endorsement letters, like the letters we got back from students, from teachers. It was a real kind of centering for like the work that we do and a reminder of why we do the work that we do. So even if you go through the process and you don't become a finalist and you don't ultimately win, like it is a constant reminder of why do I do this work? Why do I work so hard? And you will get that through this process. And so that alone, I remember like saying, I think we all said it to each other, like, if we don't win, we feel like winners.
Well, and I know that the Syosset community celebrated you. And when this information came out, it was shared out on all the platforms. And your district did a fantastic job of making sure that the larger school community knew about this incredible program that's right there available to their students. Let's get a little techie. There is money associated with this win. $10,000 is coming to your library. Now, there are three of you who have ideas about what you would like to do with this, and I know you all really work well together. How do you prioritize what you want to do with this moving forward?
That's what we're going to do, essentially. We're going to reach out to some teachers, so some groups or student government to get a really great group of students together. And we're going to, just like we were asked to dream big in terms of our space and to like what we wanted to accomplish, we're going to ask them to dream big about what they think they would do with this money. And we'll kind of help them through that process, see where they come. But we have ideas, but we really want to hear from the students because it's about them.
Well, and Kristina, I have to imagine as the ed tech specialist in the conversation, there are always amazing things on your wish list of things that the space could use, especially ed tech evolves and there's always something new coming out. Do you have anything on your wish list?
We are fortunate here at Syosset to be so supported. So we do have a lot of things, but I would like to expand our community service offerings to our students in the library. So we do have a cart right now for community service, but I would like maybe a few more supplies. So students who need community service for Honor Society or even scouting or any other activity that's doing can come to the library for community service hours. So it's not really a thing, really, but that's something I'd like to promote because we are very fortunate here at Syosset to be supported.
Fantastic. Wow. You've had an amazing year. It's winding down right now as we speak. I am so grateful that the three of you have been able to join us today. You have had an incredible year. I hope you're all going to enjoy your summer. Would any of you like to share what is something that you do over the summer that is just selfishly just for you?
I read all the things I haven't been able to read all year, and it's not going to be YA.
Yes. How about you, Sarah?
I'm going to try to. I have a little 2-year-old at home, so she takes up a lot of my time, a lot of my free time. So I think, right along with Trish, I love to read. And it's like in my free time, I love to read. I love to bake, that kind of stuff. So I'm going to try to do as much as possible and maybe finish like 2 books this summer if I can. So we'll see.
Well, and you, Kristina, I know you have a graduation to attend, don't you?
Yes, my son is graduating middle school tomorrow, and he'll be in the high school, so that I'll have 2 high schoolers. One schooler still on, but 2 high schoolers.
That's fantastic. Well, and I know you always plan fantastic family vacations as well. So, friends, I am so grateful, and I'm sorry you have to go to a staff meeting now, but duty calls, and I wish you a wonderful rest of the school year and have a fantastic summer.
Thank you so much, Amy. This was fun. Thank you, Amy. A lot of fun.
If you found this episode helpful, please share it out with your team, your PLN, and on social media. Be sure to follow on your favorite podcatcher so you'll never miss an episode. And if you really like listening today, consider leaving a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Reviews help others find us. Use the code UNITED to take advantage of Capstone's generous $20 discount off an order of $100 or more. See the link in today's show notes. And because I am in full podcast mode and recording all summer long, you can be sure that we'll have an episode next week. The topic will be motivating middle school readers and my conversation with Todd Burleson. I hope you will tune in.